Now that CSGO has a Battle Royale mode with its own huge map, it's time to investigate just how big it is compared with other maps from CSGO and from other games. The island is roughly 400 meters across and 400 meters this way. It took me just over a minute to run across it. Even if you were to go diagonally, which is the furthest you can possibly travel in a straight line, it's still under 600 meters in distance, taking me 85 seconds to complete. You won't need vehicles to traverse this map, and given how cluttered it is, you probably wouldn't want to use them either. But we would still like Funk Vehicle support, please, Valve. Here is how other maps in the game compare. The smallest was Agency, with a playable area of just 75 by 104 meters. Canals wasn't much bigger, at 88 by 94. I know, I couldn't believe it either, since it struck me as a big open map. Well, I guess from this spot at CT Spawn you can pretty much see across the entire map in two directions. Let's put these maps into perspective. What we're saying is that a huge part of the map, Canals, is no bigger than the radio courtyard in the centre of Blacksite. You know, the bit that's got a building taking up a quarter of it that doesn't even feel that big. This didn't seem right to me. So I ran, side by side, to see how they compared. How about that? This same courtyard on Blacksite is as long as the distance from the car at Dust 2's bombsite A to the entrance to bombsite B, from this van on Mirage through to this bit here near T-Spawn, and about the length from here on train through to the far, far side of the map. Here is how Blacksite compares to Austria, Biome, Cache, Inferno, Office, and Overpass. I think you'll agree, I have no life. But which is the largest normal map? First, a disclaimer. To find the largest maps, I am only measuring their width and that other distance, and then multiplying them together. This is a very primitive method that massively overestimates how much playable space the map actually has. For example, a huge open arena would be calculated to have the same area as one that's just two long corridors, even though the arena one is obviously the bigger map. I'm aware of this limitation, but since these map overviews are to scale, you can use your eyes to roughly calculate playable area if you really care about such a thing. According to my primitive measurements, Cobble is the third largest. It's an absolute unit of a map, even after a quarter of it was lopped off in the Halloween update. If you want your playable surface area winner, then pre-Halloween Cobble is a good choice. But an even bigger version was around back with the map's release in 2013. If you ever wondered why the radar image for this map isn't centralised, that's because it used to be until they removed a load of areas from it, like this bit at the back of B. I'm on a roll now. Go back even further and you'll find that Cobble has always been too big. I believe its original maker, Dave Johnston, made it back in the year 2000 in about 8 hours and didn't even check the scale until he had finished. But that was acceptable back then. Even its predecessor, CS Kustal, was too big. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Back to the present and onto the second largest current map, which is Nuke, thanks to its ridiculous length. As you can see, a lot of this space can't be accessed, but then the map does have multiple levels to it. I think it's a worthy pick as a big map. And I know what you're thinking. Why are there these pointless bits at either end of the map? Once again, it's a relic of a time long gone, because people used to spawn here, but Valve finally saw sense and moved the spawns closer since we were wasting 5 seconds of our life every round running and being blocked on the same bit of path. So perhaps these bits shouldn't count as the map anymore. Maybe the only reason they're still there is because Nuke is vain and wants to win an award for being the largest map. It's not like it will win anything else. And yet it fails, even with this, because the largest is Sub-Zero. I've kind of botched the map image here, since the original cuts either side off. You can see this when playing on the map around terrorist spawn in particular. But even Sub-Zero is still under 9% the surface area of Blacksite's island. There have got to be larger maps to compare it to. And there are. There was a map that was around for a few operations called Insertion. You'd choose a starting point and then would have a huge open world to explore with the aim of rescuing the hostages. The map was 9,700 by 8,000 units in size. That's 29% the surface area of Blacksite. But there is a CSGO map that's even bigger. This map is from Kinsey's Battle Royale game mode, released a year ago. The area you can see here is the largest size possible in the editor, nearly 4 times the area of Blacksite's. But that's not all. Head into these clouds and you pop into another zone that's also the largest size possible. In total, there are 4 of these zones, cleverly stacked on top of each other in the editor and linked with teleports to create a map that's bigger than it should be. And it works too. Weapons were modded for longer ranges and to feature bullet drop. The experience was closer to that of PUBG than it was to CSGO. I covered it in a video a while ago. This is how Blacksite compares to Kinsey's 4-part Battle Royale map for its Go for the Kill game mode. Before we move to other games, let's see which map is the most detailed. I counted the props in the map. Props are kind of what you'd expect. A TV would be a prop. So would a tree. These rocks here are a prop. So how many are there in Blacksite? 9,200. This has got to be far more than a normal Counter-Strike map, surely. And it is more than most. But Inferno still has 6,400, which is impressive for a map that's so much smaller. But the most is in Biome, with 9,700. More than on the whole of Blacksite Island. I counted them myself. Displacements are bumpy bits of floor. You place lots of these together like a patchwork quilt to create an island. So you'd expect Blacksite to beat the rest of the maps for this, hands down. And it does have 4,500 of these. And yet it's beaten by Dust 2 with its 6,940 displacements. Because in that map, almost everything is made of them, even walls. Which is cheating if you ask me. In total though, Blacksite is the most complex map, with almost 23,000 things in total. That's counting everything, from lights to sound cues to birds flying in the sky. Biome is second most complicated with 18,800, and Inferno is third with 15,000 things in total. Now for the next step. How large is Dust 2, Blacksite, and Kinsey's Battle Royale map compared to other games? I can't accurately measure this since I don't have the same experience with these games, so I've had to rely on what the internet seems to think. While doing this, I got a bit concerned. Although I'm only comparing map sizes, I began to worry that I might still manage to offend fans of these games. This is not my intention. I am doing this out of curiosity and have the utmost respect for these games and their player bases. So if you feel offended by what I say about these games, then I apologise in advance. I try my best to get accurate measurements, and the last thing I want to do is to upset anybody. Fortnite, a terrible Battle Royale game, appears to have a map that's 2.5 by 2.5 kilometers, meaning that Counter-Strike's maps look like this in comparison. Dust 2 is barely visible, unless you have 4K, Blacksite is but a tiny blob, and only Kinsey's map comes anywhere close to the size of Fortnite's. Moving on to Black Ops 4, the game that dropped the only bit of Call of Duty worth playing by going fully multiplayer, now has its own Battle Royale map. The dimensions for this abomination were harder to get. It's apparently 1,500 times the size of Nuketown, which Driftdoor calculated to be between 4.5 and 7.4 kilometers squared. I went for somewhere in the middle of these two, making it just a bit smaller than Fortnite's. Which means Fortnite's is better. PUBG next. They may not have a clue about game design, but they're great at showcasing their maps over on their website. I got the sizes of all 3 maps here, but also the percentage of each map that's land, as opposed to water, which is great. I haven't been doing this with the maps I've covered up until now, and I won't be starting now either. Sanhok is the smallest of these maps, and is 4x4 kilometers. I considered this to be a small map, but it's much bigger than Fortnite's and Block Apps, and far, far bigger than anything Counter-Strike has. But even this is tiny compared to PUBG's other 2 maps, which are a stonking 8x8 kilometers in size. But wait, what about Skyrim? Well, it turns out that it's only 7 by 5.5 kilometers in size, making it smaller than PUBG's maps. PUBG better than Skyrim? Confirmed. Finding GTA 5's map size was hard. I even had to click to the second page of a Google search. I thought it would be easy to find measurements for such a popular game, but the internet has people confidently claiming anywhere between 50 and 250 kilometers squared. Does nobody bother doing the work themselves anymore? I couldn't be bothered, but couldn't settle on a square size when clearly the map isn't square, so settled for 9 by 14 kilometers, which makes it the best map yet. Before we lose track of the CSGO maps entirely, let's zoom in and see what's left of them. They really do look tiny compared to the other games and their gigantic maps, don't they? But don't worry CSGO, I still love you. But let's go bigger still. Arma 2 is 225 kilometers squared. Does that mean that it's 15 by 15 kilometers? Or is it that the land is 225 and the water is extra? I erred on the side of caution and opted for 15x15, making it only twice the size of GTA 5's. Assuming that Arma 2 was only 15x15 kilometers also makes this last map more dramatic. I have Arma 3 installed and it has a handy kilometer-sized grid, which leads me to believe that the land is 270 kilometers squared, but the area it covers is actually 26x21 kilometers, making it dwarf the others. Bye bye, CSGO maps. That's a big island. A big, big island. I should know. I've run across it. And here's the Earth. Water included, this is an area of 510 million kilometers squared, which is big enough for 930,000 Arma 3s, 82 million Fortnites, 3 billion Blacksites, or 47 billion Dust 2s, which, for fans of CSGO, might finally be enough. I'm hoping to make another video talking about all the cool stuff I've discovered about the Blacksite map, but until that appears, check out this video where 2Clicks Philip finds out what the second tallest mountain in Skyrim is.